All right, so we're diving deep today, and I'm really excited about this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're tackling the American Revolution,
Okay.
but with a twist. Our source material this time, a film script.
Interesting.
I know, right? Not your typical history book, but trust me, it offers a really cool perspective of things.
I can see how that would be the case. Sometimes a fictional take on history, helps make those events feel, well, more real.
Exactly, it brings those historical figures to life, and that's what we're going for today, to really understand the people, the passions, the drama that fueled the revolution.
That human element is so important. It helps us connect with history on a deeper level.
Absolutely. So this script we're looking at, it sets us off right after the French and Indian War. We're talking 1763. And the scene, let's just say the colonists aren't exactly throwing a victory party,
Yeah, the French and Indian War, a big win for the British, but not so much for the colonists who, helped them win it.
right? Talk about a letdown. They risked their lives, fought for the British, and what do they get? The Proclamation of 1763.
Oof, yeah. That one was a real blow.
Basically, the British government said, hold up, colonists, you can't settle west of the Appalachian Mountains. Imagine the frustration.
I bet. You have to remember, for many colonists, westward expansion wasn't just about land, right? It represented opportunity, freedom, a chance to build a new
It
life.
was the American dream, centuries before we even called it that. And to have that dream suddenly restricted, well, the script captures that anger beautifully.
And that's where we start to see the seeds of rebellion really taking root, especially in Boston.
Yeah, Boston was like the epicenter of revolutionary activity. The script introduces us to some major players there.
Oh, yeah, the big names.
Samuel Adams, John Hancock, Firebrands, both of them. They were leading the Sons of Liberty, this underground group that was organizing protests, spreading dissent. They were masters of propaganda.
The Sons of Liberty knew how to get a message across. Think about the Stamp Acts in 1765. They made sure everyone felt the impact of that one.
Oh, for sure. And the script really highlights Patrick Henry's famous "Give me liberty or give me death" speech.
Chills every time.
Right, it just captures that raw emotion, that feeling of, we've had enough. They felt like their rights as British subjects were being violated.
And it wasn't just about taxes, right? It was about a fundamental sense of injustice. The colonists felt like they were being treated like second-class citizens.
Exactly, and then things escalate even further with the Boston Massacre in 1770.
A turning point, for sure.
British soldiers firing into a crowd of colonists. Chaos, death. It's a really intense scene in the script.
And what I find fascinating is that John Adams, a staunch advocate for independence later on, actually defended those British soldiers in court.
Wow, yeah, it's one of those moments in history that makes you realize things weren't so black and white.
Exactly. Adams believed everyone deserved a fair trial, even his political opponents. It speaks volumes about his character.
And it reminds us that these were complex times with people grappling with really tough choices. And then, of course, we have the Boston Tea Party.
Now, that was a bold move.
No kidding. Colonists dressed as Mohawk Indians, dumping all that tea into Boston Harbor.
They were sending a message loud and clear.
It was a calculated act of defiance. But remember, at this point, they weren't necessarily calling for full-blown independence. They wanted their rights as British subjects restored, not a complete break from the crown.
Right, they still saw themselves as British, but they wanted to be treated as equals, not subjects under the thumb of a distant king.
But the British response, not exactly what the colonists were hoping for. The Intolerable Acts.
Yeah, the name says it all, doesn't it?
They basically clamped down on Massachusetts, shut down the port of Boston. Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
It was a major turning point. From that moment on, armed conflict felt almost inevitable.
And that brings us to Act Two of the script, which opens with one of the most iconic moments in American history.
Let me guess, Paul Revere's ride.
Bingo, the British are coming. It's one of those phrases that's etched into our collective memory.
And it signals the start of the war. April 1775, the battles of Lexington and Concord, the first shots fired in the Revolution.
The script does a great job of conveying the chaos and confusion of those early battles. It wasn't just armies clashing, it was neighbors fighting neighbors.
The Revolution tore communities apart. Families were divided, loyalties were tested. It was a brutal and messy affair.
Absolutely. But it also showed the world that these colonists, these farmers and shopkeepers, was willing to fight for their beliefs.
The Battle of Bunker Hill is a perfect example. They lost that battle, but their tenacity, their willingness to stand up to the British, made a huge impact.
It was a moral victory, for sure. And then, in 1776, comes the defining moment, the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
A document that changed the course of history.
I mean, just think about the guts it took to sign that document. They were declaring war on the most powerful empire in the world.
The Declaration, largely written by Thomas Jefferson, laid out the philosophical foundation for a new nation. It proclaimed that all men are created equal, that they have certain unalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It was revolutionary. And it wasn't just words on paper. It was a rallying cry for freedom and equality that resonated across the globe.
And it set the stage for a long and bloody conflict.
A conflict that tested the colonists' resolve in ways they couldn't have imagined. The script takes us through some of those dark moments, like the winter at Valley Ford.
Valley Ford, a testament to their endurance, their unwavering belief in the cause.
Freezing temperatures, lack of food, disease rampant. It was brutal. But they came out of that winter stronger, more determined.
Thanks in part to the training they received from Baron von Steuben, a Prussian military officer who instilled discipline and professionalism in the Continental Army.
He basically whipped them into shape.
He did, and that made a huge difference. But even with a more disciplined army, the colonists still needed help to win this war.
And that help came in 1778 when France entered the war on the side of the Americans.
A game changer, no doubt.
Benjamin Franklin, he was a genius at diplomacy. He secured crucial financial and military support from France, which tipped the scales in favor of the Americans.
It's hard to imagine them winning without French assistance.
Agreed. And that leads us to the final act, the climax of the Revolution. Yorktown, 1781.
The trap is set.
Washington, with French support, surrounds Cornwallis and the British Army. It's a tense standoff that culminates in a decisive American victory.
Yorktown was the beginning of the end for the British. It forced them to the negotiating table.
And in 1783, the Treaty of Paris is signed, officially recognizing American independence. But the story doesn't end there.
Right. They had won their independence, but now they had to build a nation.
And that's where Act 3 of the script gets really interesting. It shows the drafting of the Constitution, the debates, the compromises. Imagine being in that room with those brilliant minds.
James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, all these giants of history trying to create a system of government that had never been tried before.
It was a monumental task, and they managed to create a framework that's lasted for centuries, with principles of democracy, checks and balances, individual liberty.
It's a testament to their vision, their commitment to creating a more perfect union.
And it all culminates in George Washington taking the oath as the first president. A fitting end to a truly remarkable story.
A story that continues to inspire and shape our world today.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, we focused on the military and political side of things, but what about the everyday lives of people during this period? What about the social and cultural changes that were happening? The role of women, African Americans, Native Americans. Those stories are just as important to understanding the full scope of the revolution.
You're so right. The American Revolution wasn't just about battles and treaties. It was about people fighting for a better future, for themselves and for generations to come. And those stories, those individual journeys are what make history truly come alive. I encourage everyone listening to keep exploring those stories, keep digging deeper, keep asking questions. There's always more to learn, more to uncover about this pivotal period in our nation's history.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.
Keep learning.